Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Meshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Atpadam Darshitam Yena Asmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidyagravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Namadeva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Namadeva Deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, Mark, where are we in our text?
We're in chapter 1 on verse 33 today.
Chapter 1, verse 33. So, to sum up, the two armies are arrayed, the Kauravas versus the Pandavas. And Arjun is the general, he's the commander-in-chief. And Lord Krishna is his charioteer. And he starts off as a man of action. Krishna, drive the chariot between the two armies so I can see who's arrayed. You know, are the archers over here? Are the foot soldiers there? Where are the cavalry? You know, so we can just get does what a general does. And then when he gets there, he realizes that it's his cousins in the other army, people he grew up with. His own grandfather is there. His revered archery teacher is there. Not only that, their army is bigger. He starts to have doubts. Maybe this war isn't a good idea. And our poet Vyasa does word painting. He describes Arjuna's emotional and mental collapse. And where we left off is he's so freaked out, dropped his bow, his knees buckle, and he's sitting in the bottom of the chariot. So Sheila's going to help us out as best she can with the Sanskrit. Is there anybody else online who's facile with Sanskrit?
No, just Nikhil, I think.
Okay, so Sheila, help us out. Verse 33.
Wow.
Do the transliteration, read the Roman text.
Yes. Tasya matre kanikshatyam no rajam shukahani cha ta ime vasista yude pranam pranam yeah pranamstva dan anika. Is that correct, Mark? Was that the right verse?
That's the right verse.
Yes. And the English?
In the English. 33. They for whose sake we desire kingdom, enjoyment, and pleasures stand here in battle, having renounced life and wealth.
So here Arjuna is starting now to give rationalizations to Lord Krishna. So again, our poet Vyasa is so psychologically aware. So whenever you and I go out into the world and we have a duty to perform, and we're frightened, or we have low self-esteem, I can't do it. What we tend to do is what I call sour grapes renunciation. So, do you all know the story from Aesop's fables about the sour grapes? So there was a fox, and he was moving through a grape arbor. He sees this luscious bunch of grapes up above, and he jumps to try to get them. And they're too high. He can't jump high enough. So he walks on, and then he says, they were probably sour anyway. So his failure was rationalized by some excuse. And that's what you and I do. We don't suit up and show up at work like we should. And we get a reprimand of some sort. What does our mind say? It's a lousy boss. He doesn't know how to manage. They don't understand what I'm going through. Human nature. Become defensive, irrational. So this is what Arjuna has started to do. And what I find so interesting, Krishna doesn't say anything. He just lets Arjuna vent. Next verse.
Akaya pitraha putrastata avaka ka pita maha ma la okay, I'll keep trying. I'm so sorry.
Well, maybe we can try someone else. Mark, do you think you
could
can make your way through
Yes,
it?
maybe.
Let's see Mark try.
Second line is
And we can just do English if we need to.
Svailaha Sambandinastraha. I think I was muted for part of it.
Let's
Sorry.
just do English tonight. There's no point in struggling. Okay. And what's the English of this verse?
Teachers, fathers, sons, and also grandfathers, paternal uncles, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, and other relatives.
So here he is identifying that there are noble people in the other army, people who are to be revered and loved, not slaughtered. So he has doubt. Next verse.
Verse 35. These I do not wish to kill, though they may kill me, O Madhusudana,
Madhusudana.
Madhusudana, even for the sake of dominion over the three worlds, how much less for the sake of the earth?
And now he gets on the martyr thing. No, I won't fight them, even if they kill me. His excuse. And now he's lost sight of the reason for the war. The purpose of the war was to establish righteousness and for Yudhishthira to take the throne. Now all of a sudden he says, well, we don't want glory and power and stuff like that. Why would we do that? Killing them. It's better that they would kill us. Have you ever played martyr?
Yes.
Oh, suffer. Nonsense. It's such an example of human nature. We're all Arjuna. Anyways, next verse.
Could I read the next one in English? Or
Please
Mark?
do.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Go for it, Sheila.
Is that okay, Mark? Okay.
Sure, that's fine.
Killing these sons of Dhritarashtra, what pleasure can be ours, O Janardana? Sin alone will be our gain by killing these felons.
So all of a sudden he's lost sight of it. He's not doing this war for pleasure. And now he's gotten very narrow. I'm not getting my needs met. I'm not getting what I want. How many of us go there? And he sees, oh, this is a familial tragedy to be killing my cousins. Yeah, it is. But that doesn't mean it's not righteous. Again, going back to our metaphor of the American Civil War, which was fought over states' rights, but most importantly, about the abolition of slavery. It would be like a Northern general saying, well, I've forgotten that we're fighting to free slaves. I don't want to kill my cousins. We probably shouldn't do this war. Losing sight of the larger picture. And he says we're going to incur sin. Now, we have to understand the word papam in Sanskrit, which is usually translated as sin. It's a very different notion than the Christian notion of sin, where we disobey God. These ideas of punya, merit, and papam have largely to do with ritual purity, which defiles us, doesn't let us sacrifice. So, Ashley, you probably know this one. Do you know the story of the prodigal son, the Good Samaritan?
Yes.
So, this fellow's on his way up to Jerusalem. Why? Because he wants to do sacrifices at the temple. And he's set upon by bandits who beat the crap out of him, rob him, and leave him for dead. And other Jews come up the road and they see him lying there in the ditch. And what do? they cross over to the other side. Now, it wasn't so much that they were hard-hearted. Why didn't they want to help the guy? How were you taught, Ashley?
I don't know, just more on a side of being like selfish or greedy, like not wanting to stop this to help someone.
Well, there's actually a deeper meaning. If you're an observant Jew and you're on your way to Jerusalem to perform sacrifice in the temple, you can't touch a dead body. It makes you ritually impure. Then you've got to go take a special bath called the mikvah and do all sorts of rituals to purify yourself. So they crossed over to the other side so they wouldn't incur sin. But sin not meaning you've disobeyed God's will. It means you are now ritually impure. Now the Samaritans, they don't worship God in Jerusalem. They worship God on another mountain. He didn't mind it, so he was the good guy. He stopped and helped the guy. He was the real neighbor. But there's that understanding of ritual impurity. So here, one of the things Arju's going to say is, oh, if we kill our neighbors, we're going to mess up the family, we're going to incur papam, we're going to have to do all sorts of rites and rituals to purify because of this. Any thoughts on this?
I have a quick thought. Just the word papam in Telugu means like sorry. I mean, I guess it means sin, but it means, oh, I'm so sorry for you. So I think that's similar meaning, right?
I don't know. I mean, it literally means incurring sin. The idea is that if you incur a sin, your soul is somehow sullied, and you've got to perform ritual in order to purify it. That's the idea in more Brahminical kinds of structures. In Telugu, I'm not sure the relation there, so I can't help you. Mark, I'm curious. You being Jewish, do people still have these strictures against touching dead bodies?
No idea. I don't know.
Well, you're no help. All right, next verse.
Therefore, we shall not kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, our relatives. For how can we be happy by killing our own people? O Madhava.
Yes. So again, he's wrapped up in egoism. He's thinking about how can I be happy? I will grieve if I have to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra. Now, what else is going on? Again, human nature, we hide a negative motive underneath the good one. Sounds like he's being very compassionate. But in truth, he's lost sight of his responsibilities, his duty. Here is a true story that illustrates this. There was a young man from Mexico who had taken the brahmachari training course in the Chinmaya mission. And his father was an attorney, and he had studied to be an attorney. This may have happened before he took the training. But anyway, he was deeply engaged in Vedanta, but he was a young man and an attorney. And he asked Swamiji this moral question. We're going back 40 years now. He said, in Mexico, the judicial system is corrupt. And in order for your client to win his case, you have to bribe the judge. As an attorney, ethically, should I bribe the judge? Very good question. Swamiji's answer was interesting. He said, of course you should. This young man was kind of perplexed. And he said, what is your dharma? What is your responsibility? What is your duty as an attorney? To advocate for the interests of your client. If the judicial system is such that you can only advocate for your client by bribing the judge, should you sacrifice your client to assuage your own conscience? No, that's not fulfilling your duty as a lawyer. He says, if you don't want to engage in bribery, maybe you need to not be a lawyer. But when you're in the middle of a case, your duty is to serve the interests of your client. Isn't that a fascinating answer? And so you see, Arjun here has lost sight. He's a general in the army. He's taken on the responsibility of fighting this righteous war to establish righteousness in the kingdom. And now all of a sudden, well, I don't know whether I want to do this. He comes up with pseudo-spiritual rationalizations. Didn't want to kill people. Maybe he should have never become a soldier. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Though these with their intelligence clouded by greed see no evil in the destruction of the families in the society, and no sin in their cruelty to friends.
So here he's acknowledging that the Kauravas are doing dastardly things. They're trying to steal the country. They're putting their own greed above the good of the nation. They are not the rightful rulers. It's a coup. It's India's version of January 6th. Attempt to thwart the peaceful transfer of power for their own selfish ends. Arjuna sees it, but he still doesn't want to fight. Even though they want to do this, we're going to let them do it because I don't want to fight. Next one.
Why should not we, who clearly see evil in the destruction of the family units, learn to turn away from the sin, O Janardana?
I love it. He's lecturing a divine incarnation of God. So he says, well, I think the thing we should do is all of a sudden back away from this. And he comes up with a pseudo-spiritual rationalization. His rationalization is we want to maintain the family unit so the family unit can do the proper sacrifices, and mainly so the ancestors get their what they call binda. Binda is a rice ball. The idea is that you want to feed the spirits of your ancestors through various rituals. It's, unimportant thing in Hinduism, but it's not the major thing. He's got all sidetracked here. Next verse.
Jim, quick question. This is Atik. Hi. So did Arjuna deep down did he not want to do this to start with? Or did he want
No, he was all gung ho on it.
Okay.
And he's Kshatriya, he's a warrior. So he comes from a military family. It's as if he was a kid who like went to West Point, got his commission, and he's currently a brigadier general. And then all of a sudden, I'm not sure I want to do this.
Okay.
But the important point is he's lost sight of his duty.
Okay.
Now, we have these things all the time. We'll talk about, real live things. Many of you may know who General Milley is. General Milley is the former chief of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And his duty was to advise the commander-in-chief, meaning the president. He had a lot of disagreements with the policies, the behavior, the attitudes of the president he was serving. That happened to be Donald Trump. But he did his duty while he was in that office. It was only years later when he was retired that he began to express his personal opinions about the former president. That's what soldiers have to do. You obey every legal order that's given to you by a superior. That's what you do. Wasn't much different back in Arjun's time. Is that helpful, Atik?
Yes, Jim. Thank you.
All right, next verse.
In the destruction of a family, the immemorial religious rights of that family perish. On the destruction of spirituality, impiety overcomes the whole family.
So here he's getting into, begin the ritualistic portion of Hinduism, that if the family is destroyed and there's nobody there to teach the kids how to do the puja, the yajna, then the rites don't get done. And that's going to break down the society. We actually have much of that going on today in the US. There are people who are really upset that it's not a Christian nation the way they think it used to be. They think Christian nationalism the way it's supposed to be. Many of them, like what Arjuna is talking about, have lost sight of the larger principles enshrined in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. There should be no establishment of a state religion. Everybody has the freedom to worship or not worship in this country. Others think we ought to be compelled. We lose sight of the larger picture. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Next verse.
By the prevalence of impiety, O Krishna, the women of the family become corrupt, and women being corrupted. O descendant of the Vrishni clan, there arises intermingling of castes, Varna Samkara.
Yes. So here, the outcome is that dastardly thing. What's our modern day version of it? An interfaith or an intercultural or interracial marriage. God forbid. This is not too far removed. Now, my dear mother, rest her soul, she was born in 1921. And in the 1950s, she said, I know an interracial marriage is against nature because when I see a black and white couple together, it makes me nauseous. I'm making this up. So this is the thing that good old Arjuna is worried about. And of course, he's blaming the women. They're going to become corrupt. And they're going to start being attracted to boys who aren't in their caste, let alone modern day kids. How many people do we know, Indians, marrying a Westerner or a European? It's considered a great cultural sin. It's nonsense, by the way. Going on. I take that back. If the deeper meaning is we're raised in society where adharmic values are inculcated in children, it's all right to lie, cheat, and steal, just don't get caught. You know, if you can get one over on the teacher at school by cheating and not get caught, good for you, kid. People start getting those kinds of values, then we're in trouble. So there is a deeper truth to this. Going on.
Jim, sorry, I have a quick question.
Sure.
So the Pandavas are Kshatriyas, and then which castes are getting intermingled and exactly?
Nobody's getting intermingled yet. He's just afraid of it.
Okay.
He's afraid that if they fight these things and all the men are killed, and then you've got a bunch of women without families, what are they going to do? They're going to start getting attracted to hot Vaishyas or Shudras.
Okay.
And the next thing you know, we're going to have, it's just going to be a mess.
Okay. Verse 42. Confusion of castes leads the slayer of the family to hell, for their forefathers fall, deprived of the offerings of pintha, rice ball, and water libations.
Yes. So here he says the result of this admixture of castes is the ancestors won't get their rice balls. Now, this is still done. I'm thinking of a particular student whose brother passed away a year ago. And she went back to India to do the particular puja, the particular ritual, where you have rice balls, and it's to feed the souls of the ancestors. My personal opinion, they don't need our rice. They're in God's hands at this point. They're in God's hands. Far more important to give rice to the living, the hungry. But we have in the West institutions that have ideas of this. Do any of you know any Mormons? Yes? No?
Yeah, I know Mormons.
Yeah.
I know.
One of the rituals they have in the Mormon faith is baptizing the dead. So this is why, like Ancestry.com and a lot of the other genealogy things, they're actually run by the Mormon Church. So they can get lists of names, and then they baptize the dead. That's their ritual. God help them. They think it helps save dead people. God help us. But if that particular belief gets in the way of us doing our duty, that's a different story. And a lot of Far Eastern Asian cultures have rituals where you do prayers and offerings to the ancestors. Many cultures do. I'm not saying it's wrong. But here, the point is Arjuna's priorities have gotten all twisted around. Next verse.
By these evil deeds of the destroyers of the family, which cause confusion of castes, the eternal religious rights of the caste and the family are destroyed.
Yes, so that's what he thinks is important. The eternal rights of the caste. To him, it's important. Again, going back to Jesus, one of the things that he said that I find so beautiful for those people who have religious rights of dietary purity. So in the Jewish faith, you have what's called keeping kosher. In Islam, it's halal. But in Hinduism, there's all sorts of dietary strictures that various castes have. Jesus said a person is defiled not so much by what they put into their mouth, but by what comes out of it. So I think those of us of all religious beliefs and stripes have known people who may observe the outer forms of religion, but are nasty, judgmental, mean-spirited, violent people. Priorities are all twisted up. Can't tell you how many times in church people are saying the rosary, they're praying and all that sort of stuff, singing, and they come out and scream and yell at each other in the parking lot. Did you ever find that, Ashley?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I a few weeks ago I got asked to move to the back of our church. While I was there, but it was one of those they were more worried about visual appearances than the worship part. But my kid had
But were you wearing the wrong clothing or something?
no I'm a single mom, but I have an 8-year-old son and he was on his tablet and they didn't want him up there with his tablet, so they told us to move to the back. But we've sat in the same seat for 5 years and it's never been a problem until that week.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
One of the things I always say about churches and temples and synagogues and mosques, they're not bastions of sainthood. They're hospitals for souls. Everybody who walks through the door in the Christian language is a sinner. That's without exception, including the pastors and all the big mucky mucks in the church. We're all there for the same purpose. We need healing. We need grace.
Mm.
All right, next verse.
We have heard, O Janardana, that it is inevitable for those men in whose families the religious practices have been destroyed to dwell in hell for an unknown period of time.
And again, he's just going on with his rationalization as if, it would be like one of the apostles lecturing Jesus on Jewish law and tradition. It's just, it's really silly if you think about it. Next verse.
Alas, we are involved in a great sin, and in that we are prepared to kill our kinsmen from greed for the pleasures of the kingdom.
Now, again, he's lost sight of the purpose. He says now we're engaged in sin because we're going to kill our relatives for greed and for pleasure. No, that's not why you took this job. It was for establishing righteousness. Going on.
If the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapons in hand, slay me in battle, unresisting and unarmed, that would be better for me.
And you think that's really going to happen? He's just totally making stuff up. He has not really become a pacifist in the twinkling of an eye. It's just rationalization, just looking for a way out of this fight. Next one.
Sanjaya said, having thus spoken in the midst of the battlefield, Arjuna sat down on the seat of the chariot, casting away his bow and arrow, with the mind distressed with sorrow.
Yes. So Sanjaya, remember, he's the clairvoyant sage at the court of the blind old king Dhritarashtra. So he says Arjuna collapses. So the way we like to look at it, what is this collapse? So we have a swabhava, swadharma, the law of our life, the way we're built. And the idea is to ride the horse in the direction it's going. But we have fear and judgment. I'm not good enough. I won't make enough money. My parents don't like it. All these doubts. And then the intellect comes in. Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do this? Should I do that? And the end result is we get paralyzed and we're unable to act. So the whole purpose of Gita is going to be to get these three dimensions of our individual self all lined up. True story. Going back about a decade, I was working with a young man and he was recovering from alcoholism. And he had an alcoholic's job. He was still in it, even though he'd had a little bit of sobriety. He was an administrator at a school, and he was living at home with his mother, and he was making crappy pay, couldn't even afford to get an apartment. And he was depressed, didn't know what he was going to do with his life. It wasn't working. So I asked him a question I do many times. If you were independently wealthy and you had all the talent in the world, all the contacts in the world, what would you be doing with your life? He didn't miss a beat. He said, I'd sing. He actually had a degree in a liberal arts degree in performance. So I said to him, well, why the hell aren't you? Well, I just need to wait till I get some financial security. Then I'll go into music, maybe. I'm not sure I can do this. And then what I shared with him is the end is the means in a different form. If you spend 20 years working in academic administration in 20 years, you're going to be a really good academic administrator. You will not be a singer. So you've got to be willing to take the risk to follow your dreams. Longest journey in the world starts with the first step. So part of what Arjuna has lost sight of, what was his purpose? He's a soldier, he's Kshatriya. That's a Swadharma. Nothing more pleasurable for Kshatriya than a righteous war. We get them so rarely. All right. Are we almost finished, I think, with the first chapter?
Yes, there's just one last little verse. It says, thus in the Upanishads of the glorious Bhagavad Gita, in the science of the eternal, in the scripture of yoga, in the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the first discourse ends entitled, The Yoga of the Arjuna Grief.
Yes. His mental collapse. And he's always thinking about my needs, what's going to make me happy, my relations. I mean mine. He's all caught up with that. Now, the second chapter starts, which in many ways is my favorite. It's called Sankhya Yoga, the yoga of knowledge. And all the basic ideas that he's going to cover throughout the entire Gita are covered in this chapter. So we have about 10 verses that still deal with Arjuna's grief. So let's see what happens. Let's start the second chapter.
Sanjaya said, to him who was thus overcome with pity and despondency, with eyes full of tears and agitated, Madhusudana spoke these words.
So now one of the things a guru will do is poke at Arya. Guru has the capacity to see where we have attachment and identification. Any teachers will poke, and then we start to unload so we can begin to see what's the material in the unconscious. So now we're going to see Lord Krishna poke a bit at Arjuna. Now, me, I don't do it very frequently. I'm of the opinion that life does a pretty good job of poking. What I try to do is say, pay attention. Look and see how you're reacting to this. All right, going on.
The blessed Lord said, "Whence in this perilous condition come upon thee this dejection un-Aryan-like, heaven excluding, disgraceful, O Arjuna?"
So this word Aryan means noble. It doesn't have anything to do with a particular class of people. So notice Arjuna at the end of this, he said, I'm just going to be a pacifist. I don't want to fight these people. So Krishna says, you're bullshitting yourself. So he says, why is all this weakness come upon you? Got no resolve. You're wimping out. Where's this noble warrior that everybody praises? Pokes him at his ego. He knows inside Arjuna is identified with being a noble warrior. Next verse.
Yield not to impotence, O Partha. It does not befit thee. Cast off this mean weakness of heart. Stand up, O Parantapa, O sorcerer of foes.
Parantapa, yes, scorcher of foes. So he again is poking away. You're being a coward. You're frightened. Stand up. Fight. Now, at a very human level, this is not uncommon in a battlefield situation. My older brother is retired Marine Corps. And one of the things he had as a job was throwing young men out of the back of an airplane. So when they were practicing parachuting into enemy territory and stuff like that, there you are, thousands and thousands of feet up in the air, and the back of the plane comes down, and they're supposed to run out into empty space and then jump, pull their parachutes. And a lot of the kids, these are youngsters like 18, 19 years old, were terrified. So my brother's job was to throw them out of the airplane. So fear of battle, it's not uncommon. But all of us have these things where you have an important possibility of a promotion and you're just too scared. Or an opportunity comes up to apply for a position and our fear gets in our way. Even things like meeting other people. Oh, I don't want to go on this blind date. I'm afraid I'll just show up as a goofball. So in many ways, self-centered fear is a chief activator of many of our character defects. Now, Krishna has hit Arjuna right where his ego is the strongest. Arjuna, you're being a coward. Ooh, terrible thing to say to a prideful boy. Next verse.
Arjuna said, "How, O Madhusudana, shall I in battle fight with arrows against Bhishma and Drona, who are fit to be worshipped, O destroyer of enemies?"
And then, yeah, but this is my grandfather and my guru. How can I fight against them? They are to be revered. This is what I want to do. My relationship with them. Next verse.
Better indeed in this world is to eat even the breed of beggary than to slay the most noble of teachers. But if I kill them, even in this world, all of my enjoyments of wealth and desires will be stained with blood.
I mean, mine. It's all about me. I'll feel so regretful if I kill these guys. Wait, back up a bit. They made the choice to do what they thought was right, which was to fight for Dhritarashtra. No different than Robert E. Lee. Robert E. Lee, major military figure in the United States Army. He taught at West Point. Incredibly well-respected general. What he thought his duty was to fight for Virginia, not for the U.S. That's where he thought his duty lay. That's what Bhishma and Drona have done. Very, very similar. Next verse.
I can scarcely say which will be better, that we should conquer them or they should conquer us. Even the sons of Dhritarashtra, after slaying whom we do not wish to live, stand facing us.
So now he's totally confused. He's lost sight of the purpose of the war in the first place, which would be better. Totally confused as to his duty. Remember that 3 levels. What are vasanas impel us to do? Our swadharma, our emotions get in the way, and the intellect gets confused. Now he's making absolutely absurd excuses. Going on.
My heart is overpowered by the taint of pity. My mind is confused as to duty. I ask thee, tell me decisively, what is good for me? I am thy disciple. Instruct me, who has taken refuge in thee.
Now, finally, Arjuna does something intelligent. He's a total basket case, but he knows of Krishna's miraculous nature, doesn't really understand totally who he is. But he does the thing that you and I could do that is most powerful. That is to surrender to a man or a woman of knowledge. I have no idea how to get out the torment of a contracted ego. Tell me what I need to do. Which number is this one, Sheila?
That's number 7.
Okay, going on.
I do not see that it would remove the sorrow that burns up my senses, even if I should attain prosperous and unrivaled dominion on earth, or even worship, or even lordship over the lords, over the gods.
So again, he's all caught up in egoism. I me mine, I me mine, I me mine. He thinks even if we win the war, it'll be terrible. Lost sight of the larger picture. Next verse.
Sanjaya said, having spoken thus to
Krishikesha,
Hrishikesha,
he who piles his hair on top of his head. That's what it means.
Gudha Kesha,
Udakeshu, yeah, that's a nickname for Arjun.
the destroyer of foes, he said to Govinda, I will not fight, and became silent.
Yeah. So he's made the decision not to fight. So I think we're going to quit early tonight because in the next couple of verses, the real teaching starts. And it will take some in-depth unfolding to break open the next section. So we start with verse 10 next week. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, we'll end here a little bit early tonight. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha.